This is a little bit edgy for me. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit nervous in terms of doing this video. As you know by the title, the thumbnail, and what's on the board, I'm gonna be talking about depression. And this isn't specifically gonna be really drilling into depression, but it can really be any kind of negative emotions you have gone through or going through right now. But the reason why I'm making this video is I suffered from a period of depression, and in the thick of it, it was 4 months where it was the biggest challenge I've ever gone through in my life. And I know there are so many people out there who have gone through what I've gone through. And if I can do my part and share what I've learned and share my insights, my experiences, my story, if it can help just one person out there, I think this is worth it. And so in this video, I'm going to be sharing some thoughts, some beliefs, some opinions, which will definitely contradict the mass opinion out there when it comes to things like mental health. And it will be, what's the word? It'll be polarizing. It's going to be polarizing. It's going to go against the grain. And I'm really going to try and do my best to really share things where it just makes sense. It's just undeniable. It's irrefutable. If it resonates for you. Now, this video is not for everyone, and that's totally okay. I'm not here to say that, if you're, say, for example, seeing a psychologist or a therapist or a counselor, or if you're taking any kind of medications, I'm not here to sort of say that's bad. I think that's great and that's brave, because it sounds like what you're doing is, if you're doing those things, you're trying to get better. You're trying to get back to where you were. And I think that's great. So this isn't to challenge anyone. It's just to more so challenge the overall sort of belief system we have around this topic. And I'm waffling, so I'm going to get into it. I'm not a fan of the fast way to get things. I'm not a fan of the external things out there which can save your life. So, for example, let's say weight loss. You can either go the slow way, and you can go the way which is holding yourself accountable to eat better, sleep better, exercise, all those kind of things. And that takes time, and that requires a lot of effort and sacrifice. Or you can go the fast way, and you can just sort of go on these diets, these fads. You can get surgery, all the kind of thing. With people with money, they see the online sort of scams, really. They see these get rich quick schemes. The new sort of theme, the new sort of thing for the month, the vehicle, which is going to help them change their life. There's that, or there's the slow way, which is really just not spending as much, trying to save you money, investing it, and being patient and letting compound interest do its thing. And so there's a fast way, and there's a slower, harder way. Fast and easy, slow and hard. And so no wonder in this sort of age with depression and with mental health, there's a similar kind of thing here where the majority lean to the side of the fast and easy way, which typically in this kind of context is the SSRIs, the pill for the ill. And if it's going to help you, and if you feel it's helping you, great. But what I found is that's just like putting a Band-Aid on a wound which really needs stitches. You need to get some proper healing on that. You need to go to a doctor. A Band-Aid's not going to really do much. And that's where it's going to get infected and maybe get worse. I just feel it's the same thing, because I've just heard so many people, close people to me, and things online where people go to a doctor about their depression, and the doctor doesn't really take that time to care about that individual, be curious, and really dig into what's going on in their life, rather than just being like, oh, it's a biological imbalance in your brain. We need to balance that chemistry. And so therefore, here's some drugs, which you're going to have to take for the rest of your life. I just really, in my heart, just think that's just such a shame. And I'm not saying every doctor does this. I think with this society and with the way things are, essentially subscribing people to these pills, I'm sure doctors probably get a little bit of a kickback, and they sort of need to do that because they need to make money and keep the practice up, and they need to survive. What's the wording here? I'm trying to find the word where, yeah, that's a little bit polarizing. That's just my belief. But I'm not saying all doctors are bad. And, there are some great people out there who really care. But I just think, subscribing people to these drugs, it shouldn't be a first resort. It shouldn't just be like, oh, okay, well, if you're feeling depressed, here's some drugs. I think it might be wise to maybe consider that as a last resort. And I think there's some earlier interventions, some things to do, which really is just being curious, just being a human being, just asking some questions and caring about the individual to figure out what's really going on. So that's my little intro. That's my big intro. And so really what I want to do in this video is I want to try and keep myself on track. And I want to go through, firstly, a disclaimer, because really, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm just a guy on YouTube. And maybe from your opinion, this guy does not know what he's talking about. He's not an expert. And if that's you right now, you're right. You're right. And if you want to watch this video or not, that's your choice. But at the end of the day, I'm just wanting to share what I've learned, what I feel has been best for me. And when I've worked with certain clients who maybe have felt depressed or just felt low or in a funk, when I've sort of applied what I'm going to share to them, it's made a difference in their lives. So really all I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to put a disclaimer, obviously. I'll probably put it up right now. And really I'm just going to share my experiences, my beliefs, but take that with a grain of salt. Do what you will with this information, because I'm not here to tell you how to cure your depression. I just really want to point out what I feel actually causes it, what the root cause is. Not necessarily, it's a biological imbalance and that's the cause of your depression. The depression is the effect and the biological imbalance is the cause. I'm going to take a different route here. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to really sort of break it down. And I'm going to use some analogies to sort of try and make it sink in, make the penny drop, and use an analogy. I've got a balloon, which, hopefully that will sort of make it hit home. After that, I'm going to share my story and my personal examples, the things which were going on in my mind, which I felt caused me to fall into a depression for 4 months. And then after that, I just really want to address some frequently asked questions or people who are going to try and maybe potentially point out flaws in this logic and sort of address those. And at the end, provide some extra resources, some extra learning if you're sort of interested into this, or if maybe you're going through a really rough patch right now, or you did and you're just really curious and want to learn more. I'm going to provide some resources and some things which can support you in learning, or if you're actually really going through the thick of it right now, hopefully it can just help you get back on track with just being yourself. All right, so this is what I think, this is what I really just truly believe in my heart is the root cause behind most people's depression. Most, not all, most. And so essentially, in a nutshell, I've really taken a lot of time thinking about this, researching this, and learning from some incredible specialists and trying to just get it into a few words of what I feel causes most people's depression. And very simply, it's unmet expectations. So most people with a depression, or they're going through a funk, they're feeling quite low, sad, upset, or even they're like just angry at themselves or at life, or they're in a bit of despair and going through some challenges. Oftentimes when they're in that state, it's oftentimes because they had an expectation on something or someone or themselves, and it didn't get met. in some kind of way, shape, or form. Now, that expectation could be realistic. They could have had a realistic expectation. So let's say you order some food at a restaurant and you pay $30 for a nice meal, and that meal was pretty crap. It's probably a realistic expectation which wasn't met in terms of the service, the expectation you had not being met. And you might feel a little bit annoyed or a little bit upset. And that's totally fair, because you may have had in your head, well, I've heard some great things about this restaurant. So you may have realistic expectations. Oftentimes I found with myself when I went through this depression, and people who I've worked with, sometimes they just have kind of unrealistic expectations on how things are, or how the world is, or how other people should be, or how they should be. And so very simply, I've just found your expectations in life, in lots of different ways, shapes, or forms, whatever it is for you, they simply just haven't been met. And really, I learned this quote and a lot of what I'm about to share with you from a great mentor of mine. He's sort of helped me become the person I am today, and his methodology has actually helped me get out of the depression. His name is Dr. John Demartini. I'll put some links in the bio, in the description below. But what he says is depression is comparing your current reality to a fantasy. And oftentimes with the depression, that the fantasy you're holding on to, sometimes you're really attached to that. You're attracted to that. You really want the fantasy. Some people are addicted to this fantasy. And very simply, when your current reality does not match with the fantasy, so whatever's going on for you, not going too well, your reality is a little bit negative, and you've got this fantasy about how great it would be if you had this, or if you were this, or if this person was this kind of way, or didn't do those certain things, or whatever. If you have this sort of fantasy and your reality is not matching that, it's not here, it's kind of down here, and there's this sort of gap, that's when you can start to feel these negative emotions. And I think there's like a spectrum. So I'm using the word depression because it's just like what everyone sort of knows, and it's a bit of a taboo topic. But, you know, let's say you are really into sports and you went to a competition and you worked really, 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 really hard and you lost, you came second or whatever. If your reality, so you came second, doesn't match with the fantasy or the expectation that I put in 100% of my effort and I really went for it and I didn't get it, you're probably going to feel a little bit low or upset, whatever, that's fine. Or let's say if you, same analogy, sports, but you didn't do the work, you didn't prepare, and you think you're just going to absolutely smash it, and it was quite an unrealistic expectation that you were going to win, and you came second, or third, or fourth, or sixth, but you had a fantasy that you're going to come first, same thing. It's just unrealistic expectation. You didn't put the work in. And so I think there's a spectrum, you know, whatever's gone on for you. And here's the thing, it can either be lots of little moments, lots of little things in your perception, experiences you've gone through where your expectations weren't met. So there could be like family expectations, there could be financial expectations, career expectations, health expectations, spiritual expectations, in terms of like learning and development, or, you know, your personal development and growth. You could have all these different types of sort of splits, all these kind of expectations you had for life, and they're not being met. And the more of them, the quantity of them, in terms of these kind of splits, reality not getting met, that can sort of push you further along down this sort of spectrum, if you want to call it that, in terms of severity of how you feel, the depression. Because you can have some people who are just a little bit sad and low for a day, and you could have some people who have like suicidal ideation. They could have real deep depression. And I just think it's either because there's so many of these unmet expectations, but also there could just be one thing what's happened. You know, the reality, a massive event happened and they expected this, but then it didn't get met, and their fantasy is not met. And depression it could just literally be one massive thing for someone, and the gap is absolutely massive. So it could be a high quantity of these sort of experiences, but it could also just be one quality, like a really big event, a really big things happened. So, grief is a big one. There's this reality that I'm going to spend the next 10, 20 years with my mom, my dad, or, my partner or my kids. And that was sort of their expectation, which could be realistic or unrealistic. I don't know. But then that's sort of the expectation or the fantasy, if you want to call it that. And then reality is they pass away. And that could just be the one thing which causes this. It's just the gap. Depression is really just the gap in your perception between how it is right now and your fantasies, your reality and your fantasy. Expectations, were they met? If life is meeting your expectations, you don't really have depression, from what I found anyway. But when life is not meeting your expectations, and it's constantly happening, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger in terms of the gap, that's when this just gets worse and worse and worse in terms of those negative emotions, how you're feeling about yourself. And so, yeah, depression, the gap between your reality and your fantasy. It could be the gap between where you are and where you should be. Like a big one, self-development. I'll get into my story in a sec, but I found with myself, with a lot of individuals who love learning, they read lots of books, but they don't do anything with it. And so they're really good at shelf development. I'm guilty of this. And self-development. And so, where they are is maybe, I haven't got that successful business yet, or I'm not a millionaire yet, or, I'm still in this crappy job, but I've read all these books and I should be here, but I'm not, I'm here. And that could be depression. It could be as simple as that, because you're not putting your knowledge into action. You're not doing anything with it. It's just sitting up here. You're not sharing it with anyone. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it could just be this, where you are and where you should be. And this could be in lots of different things, not just personal development, it could be financially. I thought I'd be further along by now. I thought I'd have the house by now. It could be, I thought I'd have a kid by now. I thought I'd have a relationship by now. It's just how it is and how you want it to be. I've been with this partner for 5 years now, and I thought they would have proposed to me by now. How it is we're unmarried, and I want to be married. I thought we'd have kids by now. I don't know. A big one as well, especially people who are probably watching this video who are really big into personal development. It's just there's this sort of gap between who they are and how they sort of conduct themselves in life, their behaviors and whatnot, and who they would love to be. They have this vision that, yeah, I want to be this person, and I want to be successful, and I want to be rich, and I want to have girls or guys or whatever. And life is not matching that. And that gap, however big it is for the individual, their unique experience and perceptions, that can create this. And then last one, a big one is having these expectations on other people, whether they're realistic or not, that they should act in a certain way, that they should be always nice, never mean, always kind, never cruel. They should always give me attention or give me love and never take anything away from me, never take away my peace, never challenge me. All these kind of things, because at the end of the day, like, let's say if you sort of expect people to always be honest and never lie. It's like, well, I know that I have lied just as much as I've told the truth. I do both. And sometimes I've really been nice and supported people. And sometimes I've just been a dick. I've just been really mean. And I'm sure that is true for you, because human beings were two-sided. But a lot of people, they could have this sort of gap where there's these people in their life and they're doing certain things which is triggering. It really pushes their buttons and it's really challenging them, and they don't like that. And they wished that they were essentially one-sided. nice, never mean, kind, never cruel, supportive, never challenging, give, never take, those kind of things. And that's completely unrealistic because I've lied. I've also been really mean. I've also taken advantage of people. I've been a narcissist. Whatever you want to, those labels which people just throw out onto other people, I've done that. I'm both. You watching this, you know you're both. You do both. You're a human being. And it's the same for these people who are challenging you in life right now. So having this expectation, which is probably unrealistic, that they should be a certain way all the time is unrealistic. And if you're just holding these unrealistic expectations, then they're not going to get met. And that creates suffering. There's a quote by Buddha, the desire to achieve that which is unachievable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is the source of all human suffering, which is this. It's you can't achieve, you can't have this expectation that someone's going to always be nice, never mean, just always one-sided, always positive, never negative. That is an unachievable expectation. It's completely delusional. It's just an absolute fantasy. And if you're holding that expectation in your mind that they should always be this way, you're setting yourself up to fail. You're setting yourself up for this. So to tie it in, to bottom line it, I believe the root cause is you. And I'm not pointing blame. I'm not saying you're at fault. It's just this stuff. It's just the way you're perceiving your reality. And I've gone through this. I'm going to share my story in a sec. But we all do this. There's all these expectations we have in life, and they can be realistic or unrealistic. But when they're not met, we get a little bit upset by that. And that's just normal. That's natural. That's a natural thing, right? But when you just let all these things in your life stack up from all these different areas of life, and you have these gaps in terms of your reality and your fantasies, and they keep stacking up, or you just have this one big thing, that's where you're setting yourself up for this, or that's probably why you're feeling this way. So let me use a balloon to demonstrate this. And let me actually just share my story. So I had just split up with my partner. I lived in Western Australia at the time. It was March 2021. And I came back to where I live now, Brisbane. And that point was like my all-in moment. I'm going to go all in on what I'm doing now, which is coaching. And I'm going to be this entrepreneur. I'm going to work for myself. And at the time I was doing money coaching, and I just spent a lot of time building a website because I had this expectation, which was unrealistic, thinking once this website's going to go live, I'm going to get all these customers and it's going to solve all my problems, right? So my fantasy was once the website's done, it's going to solve all my problems and I'm going to start getting clients. I'm going to start making money. And guess what? The website went live, but I didn't really account for things like getting people onto the website, generating what's called leads, creating interest in my services. I didn't really do that. So my reality was, I didn't really get any clients. I actually got one client, and that was a really good friend of mine. Probably felt sorry for me. And so that was my reality, but my fantasy was I was hoping to get 5 clients in the first week. So what happened was, before that, I had this fantasy about how amazing it's going to be that my website's going to go live. And so the fantasy is like puffing yourself up, puffing up your reality, inflating your reality, or inflating how you think it's going to be, or it should be. I didn't get that. Life did not meet my reality. Now, I wasn't in a job. I wasn't working. I had some money saved up, and I really thought I'd take the risk and go all in. Reflecting now, I wasn't all in, but at the time I thought I was all in. And I wasn't getting any clients. So my fantasy was, I really want to work with all these people and I had no clients. So fantasy was 5 clients, reality was 0, right? And because I wasn't in a job, because I wasn't actually earning any income, my fantasies, my expectations was, I'm going to move forward financially. I'm actually going to progress. But my reality was not matching that. And I was actually going backwards financially. I was actually losing money, which was adding the stress and worry to me, right? So there was a gap there. There were these expectations I had which weren't being met. Now, I had this sort of expectation which was unrealistic, that I'm going to be a full-time coach, I'm going to be a full-time entrepreneur in less than a year, right? And of course, if anyone who knows about business or has done business, most businesses fail. I think it's most in the first 3 years, right? And I was just thinking that I'm the anomaly, and the things I'm doing is going to help me get clients, which was just delusional, right? And so I had this unrealistic expectation that I'm going to be a full-time entrepreneur working for myself in less than a year. So you can see that in my mind, there's all these different things, these fantasies, and puffing myself up, getting sort of excited or elated about all these things which are going to happen, right? And they were that was sort of in the future, but then when the present catches up with those fantasies, and this reality is just absolutely not matching, there is a massive gap in my perception. This is when the depression is going to start kicking in, right? Because just life is not going the way I want, and I'm just getting over it, really. And then there's all these different things, and to bottom line it, I remember going on a night out with some friends, and because I was single, I broke up with my partner at the time. There was a girl who I really wanted to hook up with, right? And I was sort of expecting that before the night. I was sort of thinking about it, and I was like expecting, I'm gonna hook up with this girl, and that'll be great. That was sort of my fantasies or the expectations I had, and then that didn't happen, right? That those expectations I had at the end of the night. And I remember walking home on my own. It's about a 15-minute walk from where we went out. And I did a voice note to myself. And the voice note was just how fucking sick and tired and frustrated I am with, just life not going the way I want it to, right? And so I think that moment with that girl sort of not giving me what I wanted. And to be honest with you, it's not like I tried it on or anything. I just didn't do anything. I was just sort of being a little scaredy cat. You know what I mean? It's totally unrealistic. But anyway, so there's all these things happening, and then going on that night out, that didn't happen. My expectations weren't met. I got home and woke up and I was super hungover. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to work on the business. I'm just going to have a day off. I'm just going to watch Netflix. And I just chilled out for the whole day. That hangover turned into 4 months of me just being in my house, being in my apartment, my 4 walls. Not here, it was a different one. And I was just absolutely smashing Netflix every day. I watched all the movies, all the shows, and I was eating absolute crap. I was absolutely smashing Uber Eats. Like, if I showed you my Uber Eats bill, you would probably be like, that's cooked. And so, there's all these other things, and sitting in that depression, the depression's actually getting worse and worse over those sort of weeks to follow, because I'm still keeping these fantasies in my head about, I really want to be here, but I'm all the way down here, and I'm a piece of shit, and I'm just a bum, and I had so much shame because I had these prides which I was attached to, which I was addicted to, and my reality, before I fell into that depression, that 4 months starting point, it already wasn't meaning that. But when I'm actually in the thick of it, in the depression, it was just a vicious cycle, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And what I'm doing is I'm actually I'm making the gap bigger on all these different things going on in my life. And so the balloon is, whenever you have an expectation which you you want life to be like, you're sort of where you should be, where you want to be, how you'd love to actually be as a human being, how you want others to be. And you create these expectations. You're doing this, you're puffing yourself up, right? And essentially, whenever your reality is not matching these fantasies in your head, you've puffed yourself up, you've inflated things in your head, and when that doesn't get matched, you feel deflated. So that could be you losing that game, right? You just feel a little bit deflated on the day, right? But when you keep having these sort of setbacks, things not going the way I want, and it's just this constant reminder of that, and you had all these sort of expectations on how life should be, and it's just not meeting that, you feel deflated, really deflated, aka depression. I hope me explaining it like this, I hope this is landing. I hope the penny's dropping. I really hope this just sort of makes sense and I've articulated this, because I think people who are watching this and they've gone through tough times, or if you're watching this and you are going through the thick of it right now, I can almost bet money that this is going on for you. I've seen it time and time again. It's happened with myself. And when I go through moments of depression or negative emotions, or having these little fleeting moments, it's because of this. It's every time with me. And when I've spoken to clients and they're feeling low or in a funk, they've had a big setback or whatever, and things aren't going the way they want it to, or they actually use the words, I think I'm actually depressed. Turns out when we do a bit of digging, a bit of peeling back the layers, going deep, finding out the root causes for them, every time, in my experience, it's been relating to all of this. So I really hope that this has landed. And so what I want to do now is I really want to take some time to, in sales, they call it overcoming objections, but I just really want to address the probable questions I'm going to get in terms of, well, this doesn't apply to me, or, I'm special, and that may work for everyone, but with me, or, what about this? So I kind of want to just address that. So one is relationship issues, massive sort of conflicts in their relationships. And so, this sort of thing in terms of unmet expectations don't really match. I think they probably do, because if there's a relationship conflict, it's probably one of two things. It's probably you are projecting onto your partner, or the relationship issue you're witnessing. There's someone who's got a lot of pride, and there's someone who's probably got a lot of shame, projecting down and sort of minimizing themselves. There's an overdog, underdog, I can bet. Or maybe there's two underdogs or two overdogs, right? But what I found is, in terms of a relationship dynamic, when there's a conflict, when there's a challenge, there's someone who's doing this. They're sort of projecting onto their partner, you should be this way. You should be like this and you shouldn't be like that. Should, projecting down. And there's the partner who is minimizing themselves, and they're doing this. That they wish that they would be what their partner's projecting onto them. They wish they would, get their shit together, or they wish they would have a backbone, or they wish they would, give them more love and affection or whatever, but they keep doing these things, right? And so I think with whatever the relationship, whoever the people, if the relationship, there is these realistic expectations that there's going to be some good times, there's going to be bad, there's going to be support, there's going to be challenge. With like marriage, they have those vows, in sickness and in health, in the good times, the bad. I don't know the exact vows, until death do us part. It's basically saying that we're going to embrace the good and the bad. When you are being good or bad, when you're being positive, negative, supporting or challenging, I'm going to embrace that because I love you. And it's the same thing back. But when you have these unrealistic expectations that, you know, your partner should be this way, and you're just projecting down onto them, no wonder you're in a conflict. And when you're playing small, when you're minimizing yourself, and you know you're sort of injecting these values from your partner, and your partner's saying, you know, I really love you to be like this, and you're like, yeah, I really want to be like that, and you're not. You keep doing the same stuff, keep repeating the same behaviors. No wonder you're going to feel low or frustrated at yourself or your partner, or you're going to, you know, be in moments of absolute despair, and you know, it's going to feel like absolute turmoil and chaos. You know, it doesn't have to be this word. It can be just whatever negative emotions you're feeling. If there's a relationship, it's probably something to do with these two. There's a gap with who you are and how you wish you would be with your partner, in relation to your partner, or it could be the gap between how, you know, your partner is and how you want them to be. So that's in terms of relationship issues. The next one is grief. What about when someone in my life's passed away? I mean, yeah, totally. Like that's a big thing, and no wonder people get depressed when they lose a loved one. You know, it could be you know, that their parents, siblings, a partner, a spouse, or their children, someone close to them. Like, yeah, no wonder people go through moments of that. But again, I kind of talked about it earlier. It's probably due to this. There's an element of this in the grief. So, you know, it could be having an expectation that, you know, I was going to expect I'm going to die before my kids, and my kid died before me. You know, the expectation, or the fantasy, or, you know, expectation is, yeah, I'm going to die first and my kid's going to outlive me. And, you know, that's what I want. And then losing your child, for example, that reality you had in terms of the expectation not being met, it's a similar thing. I mean, it could be. Again, I'm not an expert here. I'm not a professional, you know, sort of counselor or psychologist or therapist. But with grief, there's probably some kind of element here too when it comes to that. And you know, I'm just talking big picture stuff. You know, this is the bottom line for it. But the thing is, this is sort of to make these issues for you conscious, because maybe before you weren't conscious of what was going on in your reality. And the goal of this video is just to make you conscious of what maybe is going on for you, what your root causes are, which is causing you to feel the way you're feeling right now. Last one, chemical imbalances in the brain. I want to maybe use like an analogy to sort of explain, or sort of explain my belief of why I don't think a biological imbalance is the cause of most people's experiences in terms of how they're feeling. I think that is definitely true. I think if we went back to when I was depressed and you sort of took a snapshot of my brain and looked at the chemistry, I think absolutely my brain would have been imbalanced for sure. There would have been biological imbalances with the serotonin, all the good happy hormones and neurotransmitters. But I don't think my brain was the cause of my depression. I think the chemistry in my brain was the effect. And I think all those things I told you earlier, those were the cause. It was my perception, the way I was looking at my reality. That was the root cause of my experience. And this is my beliefs. And the effect was, well, I felt this way, but also the chemistry in my body and my brain was imbalanced, right? So let me use an analogy. Imagine, you're standing here, you're standing to the back of me, and I creep up behind you, and you don't know I'm coming up behind you, and I scare you, bah! Right? In that moment, your perception, what you've heard, maybe if I've done your shoulders, there's this, what you've heard and what you've felt, your body in nanoseconds will literally change its chemistry in the brain because it sensed a threat, a danger. And what happens is you may be sort of in your body your nervous system. It's called your autonomic nervous system. There's two sort of branches. There's the sympathetic nervous system, and there's the parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic is basically associated with fight or flight. So if there's a threat, if there's a challenge, and you need to be energized to either take on that challenge, fight it, or flight, run away from it, what happens is when you perceive something which is a threat in your perception, your body will go into sympathetic nervous system. And what happens is your brain will release cortisol and norepinephrine, which is adrenaline. It releases all these kind of chemicals and these neurotransmitters to fuel you, give you the energy to face that thing on. And so if you took a snapshot, when I scared you, wah, wah, and I took a snapshot of your brain a few milliseconds afterwards or whatever, your chemistry is going to be imbalanced. And it's supposed to do that. It's supposed to do that to keep you safe. But then, let's say, I've scared you, bah! And you turn around, you're like, oh, and then you just see me, or your best friend or your mum or your dad or whoever. And that threat, you realize is not a threat. What happens is, in nanoseconds, milliseconds, your body will shift into the parasympathetic state, which is known as rest and digest. And so what happens is your body, your brain will basically do its thing. I don't want to get too much into the scientist. I'm not Andrew Huberman. But essentially the gist is your body will release these happy hormones, happy neurotransmitters, the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin, I was going to say oxytocin. It releases all these happy chemicals. And guess what? Your body's probably not going to be, your brain's not going to be chemically balanced. It's going to go the other way, right? And so the way we are perceiving our reality, and when there's something which supports us or challenges us, our chemistry will go imbalanced to compensate for that, right? Our bodies is this incredible homeostatic mechanism which just keeps us balanced all the time. And so that analogy I've used is what's called an acute scenario. So it's like an instant thing, quick thing, right? And you need to do something, or you feel a certain way in this quick moment. But there is also something called chronic. So chronic is like over time. So there may be things at work which are stressing you out every single day. It's not a saber-toothed tiger or a person in the immediate moment which kicks in fight or flight, but over time your adrenals are getting drained because there's these stressful things going on for you at work, or there's these people in your life who are being a certain way, or you're really beating yourself up because you're being a certain way, or you've got no money, and your health is gone down the toilet, or you're sort of really comparing yourself to others because there's all these people in my life who've got the houses and the babies, and they're married, and I'm not. I'm just this. Whatever's going on for you in your reality, there could be all these little things which is chronically stressing you out, chronically adding this negativity to your experience. And then to compensate for that, you're probably going to be like, oh, it'd be so nice if I had $1 million, or it'd be so nice if I had kids, and oh my God, it'd be so nice my partner was just not the way they are, or it'd be really great if I just wasn't such a loser, or whatever, right? And you do this, and just like, the acute someone jumping at you, if you have all these things in your perception, the way you perceive your reality, just like how you perceive me jumping on you and your body reacts, it's probably, again, I'm not an expert, but probably your body's doing the exact same thing to the chronic things in your life, the perceptions going on for you in the day-to-day, your reality. So yeah, I think, if you're feeling depressed, or if you're going through a depression, yes, probably your chemistry is out of balance, but I think that's an effect. I don't think that's the cause. I think my belief, again, really I'm stressed this because, yeah, I think you probably understand why, but I think the cause, most people's cause, not all, most, is this. And so one last thing before I start wrapping up the video and giving you some extra resources is that explanation I just gave is why I'm not a big fan of people jumping straight to SSRIs, antidepressants straight away, especially if the person who is the expert, the doctor, the psychologist, the therapist, the counselor, the whatever, has not taken the time to really dig into what's going on for that person and not really analyze all the different things going on in their life, before thinking about just the chemistry of their brain. This is why I really believe that medication, in my opinion, should be more of a last resort rather than a first resort. I think, it's worth exploring these things with the individual who's going through this and really trying to help them understand this is probably why you're feeling this way. No wonder you're feeling this way. And very simply, if you can really essentially appreciate your reality a bit more, see things for how they actually are, not how you want them to be, and appreciate things, have gratitude. I know that's a really fluffy word, but really just appreciating the negatives, the challenges, the stresses, being able to not be so rattled by those things, whatever's going on for you, and just trying to just keep your expectations in check. If you want to be a millionaire, for example, you have this fancy about being a millionaire, but you're not doing anything about it to become a millionaire, you have an unrealistic expectation. But if you really want to be a millionaire and you've got a really strong why, I really want to be a millionaire so I can look after my family, and you've read all the books and you really have a great vehicle on how you become a millionaire, and then you're going to be putting in the actions every day, and you are, and you're obviously going to get the failures and the setbacks, but you don't let that deter you, because that's part of the process, and you're just going to keep going, learn, grow, adapt, trial and error. You're way less likely to feel these kind of symptoms if you have these sort of realistic expectations in check. And because if you're having a fantasy about being a millionaire, but your reality is kind of matching that, you're doing the things required to help you become a millionaire. If you're doing, the actions are in line with your expectations, you're probably not going to experience these things. And so, yeah, I think, have a think about this if you're going through a depression right now, or if you've gone through really tough times in your life. Maybe have a look at, what was going on for you which created those feelings, those low points for you. If you're really struggling, I'm going to give some resources now. In Australia, we've got an amazing charity. It's called Are You Okay? And what really saved me, what really helped me when I was in the lowest low, imagine like a graph with like a stock or a share, like a company like Apple or something, and it goes through the highs and lows like this, and then it has a massive crash like 2008, and the lowest lows here. That was me in February 2022, 4 months worth. And my mum, I've been trying to dodge everyone. I had so much shame. I didn't want to speak to anyone. I didn't want to share what was going on for me. I didn't want to admit that I was going through this because I shouldn't be depressed. I know it all. But I was going through that and I had immense shame. My family and friends are trying to reach out to me. My mum, she's like, hey, it's been a while. Let's have a call. And I agreed to it. And we jumped on FaceTime. And my mum basically, she wasn't an expert. She wasn't a psychologist. She wasn't a therapist. She wasn't a counselor. She's just a mum who really cares about her kids. And she didn't do anything crazy. In that moment, she just goes, hey, it's so good to see you. How are you? Are you okay? Just, like most interactions, right? But for me in that moment, that moment of me responding and what was going on in my head was probably only a few seconds, 1, 2, 3 at max. But time stood still for me, and I had a choice. It was either, do I keep lying to my mum, to my family, to my friends, to the world that I'm okay, or do I really come clean and I tell her I'm not okay? I'm really not okay right now. And to be honest, I was really leaning to the lying, keep hiding, keep digging this shame there and not revealing what I was really going through. But in that moment, my body just reacted, and I just burst into tears, and I just said, I'm not okay. And I talk about how that was my lowest low because I didn't get any lower from there. That was the start of my healing. That was the start of me starting to really do the work to get better, to get back on track, and to be better than ever, to be honest. And so I have so much gratitude for my mum, because she's not an expert. She's not a counselor. She's not any of those things. She's just a person who really cares. And I think if you are going through a really tough time right now, if you're really doing it tough, consider having the courage to just share your experience with someone. It could be someone you really care about, someone you really trust in your life. Or it could be a professional. It could be a therapist. It could be a counselor. It could be a whatever, your doctor. But if you're bottling it all up right now, if you're watching this and you are going through this, sometimes the hardest, but it's also just a small step. You can do it. It's not unrealistic to just share. Now, it's simple, just revealing to someone that. It's not easy. It took me 4 months to finally do that. But I'd really invite you, if you're struggling right now, to just let someone know how you're really doing, because you have skin in the game, and they're going to want to help you. They're going to want to help you get back on track. They're going to want to help you bounce back. And if you're trying to do this alone, trying to deal with this, if the gaps are really big, trying to do it on your own is really, really hard. And so if you're in Australia, if you don't have anyone to talk to, there's a really great non-profit organization called Are You Okay? Maybe go on their website, maybe give them a call. And look, I've talked a lot about it, and I really don't want to, label counselors or therapists or psychologists as bad. I'm not doing that at all. I just think sometimes there's, like anything, there's some great people out there and there's some not great people out there. There's effective psychologists and effective counselors and effective whatevers, and there's ineffective ones. And I think that's just life, right? And so, if you're struggling right now, seek out a professional, reach out to someone, and book in a chat, and just start with one. Just start with one, and just seek out someone who knows their stuff. And you could go with, say, like in the UK with the National Health Service, but if you think about their model and how many people and patients they have to churn out every single day, and how much pressure and stress they're going through, is that individual the professional you're going to seek, are they going to be able to give you what you need? Are they going to be able to take the time? And so if you've got the finances, it may be worth actually paying for a professional, getting someone who is great at what they do, because you get what you pay for. So if you're struggling, seek out some assistance, either from friends or family. You've got like the Lifeline calls. If you're really you're really contemplating just ending it, speak to someone. Don't bottle it up. Don't try and deal with it on your own, and speak to someone, anyone. Speak to me, reach out to me. I'm going to get to that in a sec, but and if you're watching this and you're intrigued by this and you really want to help people who are going through stuff like this, I learned this from my mum. You don't need to be a professional. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to have a degree to help people who are struggling. You just need to care. And it can be as simple as asking, I've got goosebumps. It can be as simple as asking, are you okay? My mum changed my life. That was my defining moment. So I hope me sharing this, it's either have the courage to just share what's going on for you. And if you're watching this and there's someone who is not doing okay, they're off, they're not themselves, and you have a suspicion, have the courage to have a tough conversation with them. when I say tough, I just mean just ask the question. Hey, you seem off. Are you okay? Because that's all it took for me to get back on track. That's all it takes. Woo, god damn. Now, what I want to do is I want to share some books. If you are in the headspace to read a book, maybe get Audible if you can. So the first book I really want to talk about is this book. It's called Lost Connections. And it talks about the social reasons. He calls it disconnects. So rather than it being like, let's just jump to biological imbalance and talk about, going straight on the depressants, this book really talks about the social side of things. He calls it disconnects. There's 9 disconnects. And these are probably the reasons why you are depressed. If you're going through that, or if you see someone, one of these things may be the reason why they are feeling that way. For me, just as a side note, I, when I was in the thick of it, the 4-month depression, I was really lonely. And I disconnected myself from the world, and I shut the world out, and I was pushing people away because how much shame I had. And I remember reading this chapter about disconnection from other people, basically shutting yourself out. And I remember it triggered me so much. I remember throwing the book because that was what was going on. And so, if you really want to get to the root, I've talked about this, but, this is a really great place to start, and really just helps you really try and tackle depression or mental health from a really different angle. And I think it's a much more empowering model compared to the current model, which most people lean to, which is, your brain's fucked and take some drugs. So I'd highly recommend that book. That really highlighted me, made me conscious of, this is why I'm feeling this way. It's because of what he wrote in the book. It was bang on for me. A second book, I've actually got 2 books, which is kind of similar. The book I've actually read, it's called Man's Search for Meaning. This guy called, author, his name's Viktor Frankl. And so he went through, he was a psychologist, psychotherapist or something. And he was an Auschwitz survivor, the Holocaust. He went through the concentration camps. And he basically, the book's in 2 parts. The first part is just sharing his experiences. And the second part is him actually using what he's learned to create a new kind of therapy. He's called it logotherapy, which is basically finding meaning in your life. And I think whatever you're going through in life right now, I'm not to say that your situation isn't unique and important, but if this man can get through, he could probably argue one of the worst atrocities in human history. If this man can get through it, I hope it really inspires you to realize that you can get through whatever you're going through. Amazing book. I've read this multiple times. And I just bought this book by, this guy, Jaku, Happiest Man on Earth. Same thing. A Holocaust survivor shares how he found gratitude, kindness, and hope in the darkness of places. And so I've not read this, but it's got lots of great reviews, and I'm sure this is probably going to add some great perspective if you choose to read this one as well. I really love the back. It just says, life can be beautiful if you make it beautiful. It's up to you. And I think, there's all these things going on for you if you're feeling this way. And at the end of the day, it's your choice if you want to keep going through this, which is creating this, or if you want to do something about it. And so anyway, this book, I've not read it, but I'm going to recommend it. And then lastly, my mentor, Dr. John Demartini, The Values Factor, and the gratitude effect. Gratitude's fluffy, I get it, but a lot of the stuff out there is a superficial gratitude, but his teachings, his methodologies really helps you gain true gratitude. real deep gratitude. No matter what happens in your life, positive or negative, saying thank you for it. Whatever's happened to you, the worst things. I've seen him do some incredible work with people who've gone through the craziest things, the biggest tragedies and traumas. And after him working with those individuals, they say thank you, and they've got tears of gratitude like I did. It all makes sense, and he's incredible at what he does. And I wouldn't be sharing this video without him. So the values factor, gratitude effect, and I'd probably say count your blessings as well. Counting your blessings. I'm going to put his books, and I'm going to share some links to a lot of his videos and resources, because changed my life. And I've actually spent tens of thousands of dollars actually working with him, and I'm a accredited Demartini facilitator. So I actually use the methodology, which maybe backing step. What I did was, after this and getting back on track, I actually hired my own coach. I hired a Demartini facilitator to basically use a methodology which is asking certain questions to basically appreciate my reality and help me dissolve these fantasies I had, to help me with my depression. And so, inspired me so much that I actually spent a lot of money and done the training to be a facilitator myself, to facilitate other people through this process, to help them get through whatever challenges they're going through. So I'm going to include a load of resources by him, because his perspectives, this is where a lot of that's come from, and they're unconventional, but they worked for me, and me facilitating others, they've worked for others. I also want to share 2 podcasts I've been on where I basically just share my experience. So if you want to hear my story a little bit more and hear my insights and basically talking more about this, I'll include those podcasts in the link in the description. What I want to do is, I haven't done this yet, but I will include a link to a tool, which the intention is to actually help you. If you're like, yes, this is what's going on for me, this is why, and you feel really inspired, you want to get to work, you want to really brain dump all the things going on for you, I'm going to create a tool, a Google Sheet tool, which will really help you tease out the gaps, the expectations and the fantasies, and really help you sort of be conscious of what's going on for you. And then what you do from there is, well, obviously you have a choice. You have to decide if you want to work on those things or not. And that's maybe where you could use that to speak to a professional, speak to a counselor, therapist, or whoever, psychologist, or if you feel you can do it on your own, which if you're going through the thick of it, it's going to be very hard, but you can do whatever you need to do. Read your books, read your resources, or you can reach out to me, and I would love to help you with whatever's going on for you. So I'll create a tool to really help you with this, take it a step further and identify what's been going on for you, your gaps. And then lastly, I'm going to include a link to my coaching waitlist. So if you really enjoyed this video and you really feel that I can maybe assist you with whatever's going on for you, click the link, fill out your details. There's just a few questions with the coaching waitlist. And when an opportunity becomes available, if we're a fit, we'll have a chat, and hopefully we could do some great work together. But that's the video. Thank you for watching. It's going to be another long one. And if you have any questions, let me know. Put your questions in the comments. If you like this video, like it and subscribe. I'm planning on doing more videos like this. So if you liked it, I'm going to produce more. And what I'd also love to know is, what was your biggest insight from watching this video? What was most insightful for you? What was most valuable, and what was most useful? I would really genuinely love to hear that. So whatever it is for you, I would encourage you to put it in the comments. And with that, I will see you on the next video.